What is up, everyone? Welcome to round 2 of the Sin City Open 2025 Premodern tournament. We got some rad decks to show you, so let's get into those deck lists. First up, we have Joe, perhaps better known as Yeti on the Premodern and Old School Discords, with blue-white aggro. Now, this starts off as a white weenie list with 4 Savannah Lions, 4 Silver Knights, 4 Mother of Runes, 2 Whip Quarters, a Ramosian Sergeant to help go find those Whip Quarters, and gets a little bit more control with 4 Meddling Mages and 4 Exalted Angels. Now, there are some additional damage elements here with 2 Cursed Scrolls, a Phyrexian Furnace, which I think is always a good include, especially when you are running 2 Enlightened Tutors as well. Now, the deck doesn't actually run Disenchants, it says running Seal of Cleansing, which makes sense considering you're running Enlightened Tutors, and it does have the 4 Swords, of course. Some additional Enlightened Tutor targets are a 1 of Worship and a 1 of Parallax Way, which again lends itself to a bit more of a control mid-range style deck. Going along with that, we're going to go through the mana base real quick. There are no Mishra's Factories in this, partially because it is a 2-color deck and could be a little difficult to fit in, but he is running 4 Rishad Imports and a single Wasteland to help control his opponent's mana base. He is also playing 2 Trevis Runes, which is an interesting include given the Exalted Angels, but the majority of his cards are 2 or less, so I think that's fine to trade that little bit of tempo to get that mana fixing, especially when your deck is very color hungry. As for the sideboard, he's running another Seal of Cleansing, another Enlightened Tutor, a Serenity, a single Disenchant, 3 Cataclysms, which I think turns this deck very much into a more control deck, 2 Crimson Acolytes, 2 Hydroblasts, a single Chill, 2 Cursed Totems, and a Tormod's Crypt. Overall, this is a very interesting take on a predominantly white aggro list. I do feel like not having Crusades in this list is a bit interesting of a choice. I mean, again, this is a bit more of a mid-rangey, control-y kind of style list that does have some aggressive elements, but considering all of his creatures do have white pips in them, I feel like that would be a good include, at the very least, potentially in the sideboard. Anyways, this is his list. Let's see who he's playing against. Next up, we have Ryan with blue-white Landstill. So a match of the blue-white decks. However, this is definitely a controlling list through and through. This list is pretty standard in what you'd expect for a blue-white control list, where its main win cons are its manlands, 4 Mishra's Factories, 2 Fairy Conclaves, and the 3 Decree of Justice. Beyond that, the deck is looking to control the board as best it can. It does have a 1 of Humility, 3 Wrath of Gods, 4 Swords to Plowshares, and a whole bunch of counter spells. There is 4 actual factual counter spells, 2 Absorb, which is a bit of an interesting include, but I do like the fact that it does gain you life, and 3 Mana Leaks. As for card draw, there is 4 Impulses, 3 Factor Fictions, and as the namesake of the deck, 4 Standstills. If you're not familiar with this deck, it is trying to lock down the board, get a man land on the board, and play a standstill early on so that your opponent is forced to break it, letting you draw 3 more cards. Notably, cycling a Decree of Justice does not activate the standstill, so that is another way to get a win con through once you put a standstill on the board. Essentially, if you're playing against Landstill, you just need to break it as soon as possible because it only lets your opponent get further and further insulated. There are some 1-ofs in the deck as well. I'll go over really quick before the sideboard. We got a 1 of Seal of Cleansing, a 1 of Renewed Faith, which is very interesting, and a 1 of Disenchant. As for that sideboard, there's 2 Annuls, another Humility, 2 Tormod's Crypts, 2 Aura of Silence, 2 Hydroblasts, 2 COP Reds, 1 Ivory Mask, an additional Seal of Cleansing, 1 Cursed Totem, and 1 No Rod. Overall, a very tight list, and I feel like this is going to be a very interesting series of games, so without further ado, let's get into it. And here we go. Joe is on the left, Ryan is on the right. And Joe, again, better known as Yeti on the onlines, complete with Yeti sleeves. Love to see it. Hey, if you got a brand recognition, you might as well go for it, right? All right, we're going to start off nice and aggressive. Joe with the play into a Savannah Lions pass. Cam with a tapped Fairy Conclave, say go. Immediately not swordsing the Lions, so it will get in for 2. And can Joe follow up the pressure? He does have, I think, a Meddling Mage in hand. Chances are, though, he does not know what his opponent is playing, so a blind Meddling Mage could be problematic. However, well, he is going to play it out. What are we naming? Do we just go name swords? Wrath of God? He's only seen blue mana from his opponent. So I don't think we have the usual strips of paper here, so I don't know if we're going to be able to... Yep, Joe making... Oh, he's going to find something right on. Good. Or not. Okay, never mind. We'll never know what that melee mage is on, but I'm going to assume it's swords. Alright, there's a Mishra's Factory in Ryan's hand. I think he is going to play it. Yep, and is just going to pass. Now, after this turn, Mishra's Factory will be a good blocker. It can't activate its pump ability on itself yet, because it will have Summoning Sickness, but after this point, it'll be a good stop for both the Melee Mage and the Savannah Lions. But until then, we're going to get in for just 2. Joe not wanting to risk the Meddling Mage yet. It looks like he actually does have a second Lions too. How are we going to see that played out? I think I saw, yeah, a Silver Knight as well. Alright, there's a second Plains. I think we are going for the... Oh, we're going for the Whip Quarter. Okay. Whip Quarter is a good call. He can get in with some damage. It will get mana leaked here, though, unfortunately. Being able to tap down the factory before it can be a blocker would have been very good. Alright, Plains for Ryan. Both players aware now that they're both playing white-blue. However, Joe maybe not aware yet how control-y Ryan's list is. Could just be an aggro deck that's not seeing its creatures. It does have 2 manlands out. If I was looking at this board state, I would be assuming it's some sort of blue-white control. Which, again, for the Meddling Mage, Aiming Swords would probably make the most sense. Okay, we're going to tap 2 for a Silver Knight. Does it resolve? And 1 for another Lion. Single blue untapped. Unfortunately, yeah, Ryan has that factory. It's going to be a bit too much of a blocker currently. Joe could have bluffed a Swords. Oh, there is a Wrath of God. That's brutal. Ryan fetching to get that second white source, and unfortunately Joe only able to put all his creatures in the bin. That's rough. Ryan pointing out that his printing is from the list, a little Planeswalker symbol down the left. Premodern, unlike old school, has no limitations on reprint. You're in fact able to use any and all reprints. Alright, there's another Meddling Mage. I'm assuming naming the same thing as before, although maybe naming Wrath of God. But probably Swords. Although maybe you should name Wrath of God, because there is a second Wrath of God in Ryan's hand, it looks like. That's problematic. This might actually be a very good instance where Joe brings in those Cataclysms, I think. The side. Being able to blow up all your opponent's manlands and their main win cons, if he can get one to resolve, could be the push he needs. Even if he only gets to keep 1 creature. His opponent doesn't have any creatures. Alright, Ryan, think about animating this Fairy Conclave to try and get in for some damage. And is opting to just pass instead. Alright, Joe is going to Enlighten Tutor here. Which will resolve. Alright. He does have a few options. Looks like he's opting for a Cursed Scroll. A recurable way to put damage through in this matchup does seem good, considering all of his stuff can get wrathed and swords. Ryan, of course, does have some disenchant effects, but definitely not as much as he has creature removal. Alright, so Joe will draw this Cursed Scroll, and it will get absorbed. A little bit of a why me hand gesture there. Don't forget, Ryan, you do gain some life for casting the absorb. That is relevant. Looks like it might get missed, though. I'm just going to play a land for turn. I believe there was a Fact or Fiction in Ryan's hand. He still has that Fairy Conclave. He could still get damage through. Is he casting a Wrath of God and then the Conclave? Brutal. No, he's going to cast a Standstill. Alright. That is exactly what this deck wants to do. Back-to-back Wrath of Gods is tough for any aggro deck to come through. Joe is going to break the Standstill. Hoping he whiffs. The control deck never whiffs, let's be honest. It's just more and more resources. Oh, we're getting some camera touching. Don't worry, I lined it up the way I wanted it. Don't worry, guys. Okay, and a Darker Waste for turn. Now that... Oh, how about another Standstill? Okay. Seal of Cleansing can take care of the Mishra's Factory, but Ryan doesn't need the Mishra's Factory to swing in. His opponent's Hellbent. Okay, we are gonna seal the other Standstill. And what did Joe draw? Alright, a Whip Quarter. Oh wait, no, was it a Whip Quarter? I think it was a Whip Quarter. Yes, okay, so Whip Quarter for its rarely seen morph cost. There's another Mishra's Factory for Ryan. So maybe bluffing the Angel here. Alright, there's a Humility. Humility is a complicated card. I'm not actually sure if it turns off Morph. It probably does, but I could see this being a weird layers thing. Okay, he's not going to even bother with it. He's just going to Morph right now. It'll still be a 1/1. I'm pretty sure. Unless it getting flipped up. It's a timestamp. I don't know. Anyways. Humility and Mishra's Factory is a very interesting thing, in that Mishra's Factory is still a 2/2 when it becomes a creature. And also, if you still have the other Mishra's Factory as a land, it can pump. Now, it's a 2/2 creature with no abilities. It can't pump itself to do any like blocking or anything like that. But it is still a 2/2, which does beat all the 1/1s that Humility makes. So next turn, Ryan able to swing in for 5 with that other Mishra's Factory. Alright, so we're going to animate one factory, animate the second factory. And unfortunately, Joe can only just sit by and watch. Oh, he's going to animate the Fairy Conclave as well. I actually don't know if the Fairy Conclave retains the flying, so in this instance, I think Joe could trade with the Fairy Conclave because it's a 2/1. I don't know if he wants to do that, though. Alright, Joe saying let's go game 2. And here we are in game number 2. Joe seeing the writing on the wall there. Just dead drawing. Too many man lands. Humility gonna be a real problem. So we'll see if he sideboarded anything in here. I do see that Parallax Wave, which he did keep in the main, which can hit the man lands. I'm also just realizing, since he has Parallax Wave and the Seal of Cleansings, he can do the Parallax Wave trick. However, there's going to be very few instances where he's getting big hits off of that versus the control deck. It is, I think, more for tempo control in this matchup, just preventing creatures from dealing damage incrementally, and also just removing some of the lands from your control opponent. Showing off some new sleeves, I guess. I do like the blue. Blue's a nice touch. It's got kind of like a retro feel to it. I do wonder why, though, that one has his name on it and the red ones don't. Must be like a newer version. I believe these are actually custom dragon shields. I think I see that little emblem down at the very bottom of the sleeve. You can do some cool stuff with dragon shields for sure. Alright, so Joe will be on the play here. Ryan looking for definitely a controlling hand. I see a swords. I think I see a mana leak. That seems pretty good. I see a Wrath of God right there in the beginning. I see a couple of lands. I see a white land. I see a blue land. That seems... Oh, okay, not worth keeping. Very interesting. He is going to be shuffling it back. And Ryan going to 5 here? Very interesting. There must have been something really missing from the hand that I was missing. I only got to see peeks of it. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't played a ton of Standstill. I had it built for a while, ended up taking it apart. I do like the style of blue-white that Joe has a lot more, but I tend to run a little bit more tempo with some mana leaks. Still, having a little bit of counter magic in the deck feels pretty nice. Alright, looks like he did find a keepable 5 here. What are we putting back? I see an Impulse. I see a Humility. A couple of lands. Does it have early interaction though? That's the key. Alright, Joe, same as the first. Plains, Lion, go. Ryan with a island here. There's a Cursed Totem. Does shut off all creatures' activated abilities. I'm not sure how relevant that is in this matchup, though. I know that is, I think... No, that is a sideboard card in Ryan's deck. Alright, Joe gonna fetch here, grabbing another Plains. Are we gonna see a Silver Knight? Pretty good chance. Alright, just gonna get in for 2 first. Or are we gonna see a Curse Scroll? Alright, no. Silver Knight deployed. But yeah, the Cursed Totem does shut off activated abilities, but Joe's deck doesn't have too many creatures with relevant activated abilities. The main one is Whipcorder. I guess it also turns off Morph, so he can't... Wait, no, Morph is a special action, right? Comment below. I'm pretty sure it doesn't turn off Morph. Either way, not super relevant in this matchup. Joe getting in for 4 here. And Ryan not having a lot of action. Curse Scroll. Ryan gonna Impulse. This is the aggro deck doing exactly what it wants to do. However, Ryan did just find a Wrath of God. He is 2 turns away from casting it. But that still is probably going to be fast enough to make a difference. That Curse Scroll will get some additional damage in. Obviously, it's a great way to have recurring damage. It's a mainstay in the slide deck for that reason. If you're seeing flashing on the screen, I believe there was photographers at this event. That's what that is. I apologize for that. Hopefully no one is photosensitive watching these. There's Disenchant. That is very good. There's also a Standstill. Standstill is a little too late right now. Brian definitely wanting to save it to Wrath board, although that may not be the best option now that David knows that Ryan is packing Wrath. Okay, there's a disenchant for the curse scroll. So let's fire it off now. And do you have anything else? No, Ryan just gonna pass it back. But yeah, Joe has no reason to overcommit to the board here. However, he does have to apply a decent amount of pressure. 4 damage a turn can definitely get you there. But we're gonna go Parallax Wave. Just in case you throw up some blockers, Joe will be able to exile them. Not going to be super relevant here, I don't think. But it could be if a Decree of Justice comes down, or if he gets a man land out or something like that. Alright, Ryan wants to slow things down a bit. Let's play Humility. We'll take a point to do so, it looks like. Dropping to 9. Joe untaps. Ryan giving this card just a little more of a read. Yeah, doesn't do much right now. Because it's going to keep ticking down. But it does make Ryan's ability to block this damage much less good. Now, the real question is, did Joe save a disenchant or a seal of cleansing in hand for just such a moment? I'm swinging for... wait. Before he does that, there's a seal of cleansing. Yeah. I thought I saw it in hand. Okay, he's going to get an additional 2 damage. Ryan down to 5 here. Basically having 1 turn. Especially with that Silver Knight. So needs to see the Wrath of God. Did he pull it off the impulse? There's a standstill. Nope, just going to pass. Presumably dead on board. Will we be seeing a game number 3? Move to combat. Swing for 6. There's an impulse. What can he find? The swords saves him. That Wrath of God does not. I don't think that counterspell does either. Nope. Is not finding anything, and we are going to go to game number 3. All right, here we are in game number 3. Always great when you get a full series out of these, especially with such a classic matchup of aggro versus control, even if that aggro deck is, in my estimation, a bit more mid-range. But that's just what happens when you add blue and big beaters like Exalted Angel. That is a great hand if it had a white source. Joe gonna put that back. It did have a lion. He could have gone Plains Lion for the 3rd turn in a row, or for the 3rd game in a row, I should say. So a little bit more about this event. This was the Friday event. There was still a trophy for it, but it was definitely kind of the side event. There's also a sorcery tournament happening at the same time as this one. Both events got really cool prize rings, similar to the old school one, but said Premodern on it. I believe the Premodern one had a Survival of the Fittest art on it. Very cool. Basically like a Super Bowl ring. If I remember to add a photo of it here, I will, but I can't promise that. Future me has to remember that past me promised. All right, so Joe putting 1 back so far. I see a couple of lions. I see at least a plains. This seems like a keepable hand. Gonna put... well, maybe saving the disenchant. That makes sense. Notably, disenchant not as good as the seal of cleansing because you can play out the seal of cleansing. But Ryan on the play for the first time of this game. Just gonna play a Flood Strand and pass. Joe gonna do the same thing for game number 3. Savannah Lions, Plains, go. I do see, I think it's a Treva's Runes in hand for him, as well as a Disenchant, an Island, the other Lion. and maybe a curse scroll, I think. All right, Ryan has hit both his colors and passes. He's not slamming down standstill, although it does look like he has one hand because the opponent has Alliance. There's Mana Leak. Are we going to get a bounce here? Looks like potentially yes. So mana fixing in Premodern is not the best. You have to get by with what you got. And Treva's Runes as a bounce land is not always the best option. It is great with Gemstone Mines, but other than that, not so much. Alright, so Ryan gonna let this in line 2 to resolve. He does have the Mana Leak in hand, opting I think to maybe just counter whatever Joe goes and gets, and Joe will get a Seal of Cleansing, which I'll put on top for next turn. Again, Seal of Cleansing, very good against Standstill if you play it, obviously, before Standstill. Alright, so that'll go on the top. Still has a land, can still tap it. Are we going to play out the second Lions? No, we're going to play out... Yes. Curse Scroll, which this should get annulled. Okay, that works too. Untap and draw. Saving that Mana Leak for something else. I guess if you have the specialty of annul, you should probably use it. Alright, there's a Mishra's Factory. Say go. Drawing that seal. Gonna get in for 2. And Joe's gonna try and fire off the seal, but I imagine it's gonna get mana leaked. Especially since Ryan just played that Mishra's Factory. That makes it a bit too good. Alright, that will get mana leaked. And pass to you. Alright, another island. And pass. Standstill decks don't really do too much on their own turn. Usually it's just casting a standstill and then waiting for a big Decree of Justice at some point. Ryan deciding if he wants to take 2 here. He can animate the factory and pump it to itself. Could be a trap, but he's gonna go for it. In response, attempt to disenchant. Oh, and there is a counter spell. Yep. And the factory will get to block and pump itself, making it a 3/3. That lion will die. Alright, Joe gonna fetch here. Probably wanting another white source. Does he have another 1-drop that he could play out this turn? Regain a little bit of board presence again. Drawing out that Mishra's Factory was smart, but unfortunately the counter spell preventing him from fully capitalizing on it. But his opponent is all tapped out right now, so what do you got? I think Joe was pointing at the playmat text. This is a 30th anniversary Spellground. It's not an old one. It's the 30th anniversary in that they printed it with these doodles on it. I believe they sent this around to different artists and players and people from Magic's history that had something to do with Spellground. Very cool, very fun piece to own. Alright, so Joe did have another Savannah Lion in hand. Alright, there's a Dust Bowl. Ryan can definitely play a long game where that Dust Bowl does start to matter, especially if you're blowing up all of one color of Joe's. Alright, there's a Seal of Cleansing, and that will also get annulled. Joe can hardly believe it. Alright, and on your end step, let's Impulse. There's a Standstill. Standstill here is not awful. It's not great, but it's not bad. there's a humility as well. Can he go humility into standstill? Oh, I think we just caught Joe subscribing to the channel. I got a little QR code set up at all these events for anyone who's not yet subbed and walking by. All right, so there's a coastal tower. Are we just slamming the standstill? Yep, standstill on the board. And pass to you. That is problematic to say the least for Joe. He currently doesn't have a way to deal with the Mistress Factory. He can't swing in. If he plays something out, alright, he is gonna have to crack the standstill. I believe I said in the deck tech, giving your opponent extra time with it can only be bad for you. Alright, so we're gonna animate here. Before blocks, attempt to swords. Standstill will get cracked. Ryan will get to see 3 cards, but only has 1 blue mana. Technically does have the Mistress Factory. Is going to pump itself for 3. Did not see a mana leak. That was the big gamble there. Alright, so then take 2. Orion does get a couple of cards out of it, but unfortunately does lose his factory. Did he draw another one? No, just an island. Gonna tap 4, and there's a humility. Everything's a 1/1. Except for manlands. Unfortunately, Joe just finding lands, it looks like. Oh, there's an online tutor. Okay. Probably finding a seal cleansing here. I believe he has at least 1 left in the deck that hasn't been countered yet. Yep, looks like it. I don't know what else he pulls. He could get a curse scroll if he has a second one. I'm trying to remember if he does. Looks like he does. Okay. That's right. He had 1 Phyrexian Furnace main and 2 curse scrolls. So it looks like he does have to show that. But it looks like he did grab the curse scroll, I think. It's not a demonic tutor. It has conditions, so you have to show it. Alright, there it is. Yep, curse scroll. Okay, curse scroll going to the top. And pass to you. There's an impulse. There's another standstill, a swords, an impulse, and a Wrath of God. That is a stacked impulse. I don't know what exactly you take. I think you take the Wrath just to be safe and the standstill. Maybe take the swords. I don't know. Kind of depends what else is in his hand, but it's hard to say no to Wrath of God. Notably, we haven't seen a Decree of Justice from Ryan yet. One of the main ways the deck wins. Oh, when you know it, he does have 1 in hand. Right now he can decree for 4. That seems pretty good. Opponent's on 19. Make 4 1/1s, draw a card. Potentially catch the Savannah Lions in a unprofitable block. Alright, just gonna pass here. Joe drawing the curse scroll. I'm choosing to attack before it gets played out. Alright, so we are going to decree here for 4. Make 4 1/1s from the cycle cost. One of them will block the lion and die. And then Joe will play out the cursed scroll. Now, notably, Joe can obviously use that curse scroll on the tokens, but that's 3 turns in a row. That scroll's not pointed at Ryan, so I don't think he's going to be doing that. Yeah, Ryan drawing for turn. He did draw just then for the decree. Alright, there's a Mishra's Factory. That is a target worth targeting with the Curse Scroll. And I think he's got a... Does Ryan have a Standstill in hand too? He did see it off of the last impulse, I believe. Alright, so we're gonna activate the Dust Bowl, looks like. Alright, he's gonna... Oh, sack the Flooded Strand? Wait, what's happening here? Okay, I see. Yeah, sacking the Flooded Strand to the Dust Bowl to hit the Treva's Runes. Joe no longer has a blue source until he draws an island and plays it out. Isn't that just how it works? Unfortunately, doesn't have anything else to do this turn. Does have 3 in hand though. Can activate that Curse Scroll whenever he chooses. On end step, Ryan is gonna impulse. See a Darkar Waste, a Fairy Conclave, and some other stuff. Looks like he's taking the Fairy Conclave. Makes sense. Take the Manland. There's a Seal of Cleansing, and that is pretty brutal. Ryan more than likely playing it out here. Forcing that Curse Scroll activation. Probably just going face. Alright. Curse Scroll. In response. Oh, actually killing one of the soldiers. Okay, revealing a Mother of Runes. And I believe that is both of Joe's Curse Scrolls. Alright, go to combat. Swing for 2. Notably not attacking with a Mishra's Factory, but he does, I think, have a Factor Fiction. Oh, okay, no, he is gonna activate it here. No new information changed. Alright, there's the Fairy Conclave. And it's just gonna pass. And unfortunately, Joe just finding lands here. He is gonna play out the Mother Runes. The Rashawn Port, if you have to find a land, is probably the best option. Now, porting here is an interesting choice, because he can port in response to the land activation. So Ryan can... I guess you could just do it again. Well, no, it still taps it down. Yeah, because it's still... Yeah, you could just port when they try and animate a land. Granted, I don't think it changes too much, because Joe's is going to be swinging in, or sorry, Ryan's just going to be swinging in with everything anyways. Now again, you can let me know in the comments, but I don't think this Fairy Conclave has flying, so it's just a 2/1. So if Joe wanted to, he could block with the Mother Runes and kill it. Alright, there's a Factor Fiction in the end step. We're going to see a Factor Fiction pile. Mana Leak, Flooded Strand, another Factor Fiction, an Island, and a Darkar Waste. Well, whatever Joe sorts this as, I imagine Ryan's taking the Factor Fiction. Doesn't really need a counterspell. Does he have his 3rd Factor Fiction? Yeah, he's just going all value. Who needs the Mana Leak? We got Foff. Foff and a land too. I would have put all the lands with well, with the Mana Leak, because that Factor Fiction was getting picked no matter what. Alright, we're gonna animate the land. Swing in for Mother Runes cannot activate because of humility. So Mother Runes should be dead as well. Humility's right there. Hopefully Ryan or Joe catches it, it loses its ability. It's just a 1/1. Land for turn from Ryan. Say go. Hopefully that isn't relevant. Is that a Seal of Cleansing? I think it might be. Oh, yep. Ryan catching the Humility. The Mother can't do that. Good. Okay, we ended up catching it. Good. Magic's complicated, guys. There's going to be mistakes. I mentioned it before. I'll mention it again, though. If you catch a mistake, it's okay to point it out. Be nice about it, though. If you're being a dick, you're going to get muted. We don't need dicks in Magic. Put that on a shirt. I wouldn't wear it personally, but you could put that on a shirt. Alright, there's a Parallax Wave, so not a Seal of Cleansing like I thought. The Wave, notably very good against tokens, though. Okay, we're going to Factor Fiction here in response. Ryan maybe wishing he took the Mana Leak pile. Okay, we're going to fetch first. Go to 14. This Wave actually very good. Again, hitting the manlands too doesn't necessarily get rid of the manlands, but it does slow Ryan way down. And it leaves Joe potentially with the only creature on the battlefield. Which, Ryan is at 14. That is a long way to go. But other runes can do some work. Alright, Factor Fiction pile. There's a Wrath of God. There's a Swords. Another Wrath of God. I have to imagine the Swords is getting moved into its own pile. Joe having strong opinions on this Factor Fiction. Yet another amazing Factor Fiction pile. And it's gonna leave it like that. Now, Ryan can't stop this wave. Not with the cards that are seen here. He has 2 mana up. And unfortunately, yeah. So he's gonna just take the pile with more interaction. Leave the impulse in the graveyard. Wave hits. And Ryan's still thinking, actually. Is he going to do anything? Okay, so it does resolve. Pass to Ryan. Plays out of Plains. Has the swords in hand. Can source them on. But Joe can just get rid of any creatures he sends into attack. Looks like Ryan's going to force the issue. Try and get as many counters off of this wave as possible. Go to combat, swing with everything. Okay, all 3 are getting removed. And that Parallax Wave will technically stick around for 3 turns still, I think, because it checks to see if it can remove a counter, and if it can't, then it gets sacked. There's a Silver Knight. I mean, it's just a 1/1, but it is still a creature. Now, Joe knows that Ryan has a Wrath of God and a Swords in hand from the Factor Fiction pile, so I think he's trying to force either a Swords or a Wrath, maybe both. Instead, Ryan just wants to Factor Fiction one more time. Alright, there's a Standstill, a Darkheart Waste, an Island, a Swords, and a Standstill. These piles are rough. Alright, and another interesting pile, I probably would have put 1 Standstill with the 2 lands and 1 Standstill with the Swords. I know the lands don't really matter at this point because Ryan has so many of them, but you are just giving him 1 additional card. Whether it matters or not is debatable, but that's an extra 1/1 if he decrees. He's of course going to take the standstill and swords. Like, there's no way he doesn't take that, especially with all the mana up that he already has. All right. One more turn for the wave. Can he find a good answer here? Looking through his graveyard, he may have drawn an Enlightened Tutor. Seeing if he has any good targets. All right, we're gonna go to combat first. Swing for 2. Fine, we'll just take it. Oh, and we are gonna play a morph creature here. Now, it still is a 1/1. Doesn't matter. But he's gonna play it out before he loses another land, it looks like. All right, so that Rashawn Port getting hit by the Dust Bowl on the end step. Just making sure he can't do anything else. No more Factor Fictions. There's a Disenchant. Disenchant on the wave. Not bad. We're gonna Wrath of God here instead. All right, there's the Exalted Angel. Unfortunately, too slow in this matchup. All right, the wave is gonna die. Ryan does get his lands back. They are, at least the factory is untapped, I believe. Oh, that's getting counterspelled too. I believe the Conclave. I'm actually not entirely sure about that one. I'd have to reread what happens, but doesn't matter because Brian is taking over this game and Joe is not happy about it. These guys must be pretty good friends. But I think we are slowly coming to a close here. Joe needing to find a miracle. A land is not going to do it. Ryan untapping for the win. How about one more Mishra's Factory? Joe's at 1, swing in, and that is going to be game. Ryan takes it down 2-1. All right, well, we got to see both decks do their thing, which is always fun. The control deck getting the upper hand there, but there were definitely moments where it looked like Joe could turn things around. Unfortunately, back-to-back-to-back Factor Fictions do tend to make a difference. Thanks to all of you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so you can find your way back here. It's the best way to support the channel. And if you already are subscribed and want to help out even more, there is a Patreon link in the video description below. That money goes towards travel expenses like making it to this Vegas tournament, gear upgrades, for example, getting gear that could actually fit in a suitcase to go to this tournament, and also just making more Premodern videos in general. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.